And I made $6,000 in probably like an hour presentation. And I was on cloud now, and I was like, oh my God, $6,000 in my bank account. This is so good. And then the company never made one payment.
Oh man.
It was a $6,000 chargeback.
Jeez. There's so many people out there that are watching this that they just never been exposed. Like they doesn't even know that world exists.
So I decided to do it, but the naysayers, people, some family members, people in the department, man, you're gonna die.
Having a system without leads that's a rough world.
So my dad used to take me to the 7-Eleven, get a Slurpee, and walk back over to the Lamborghini dealership, and I'm looking through the window, and he used to always say, which one you want?
Access to more states, more leads, better opportunity. What was it that made you decide to move?
Went from a Mercedes to a
Bugatti?
Yeah.
Welcome to my show of ordinary people doing extraordinary things, where we hear from regular people who got tired of living their ordinary lives and were not afraid to make that jump.
You gotta be different. You can't be doing what everyone else is doing. You gotta create action. You gotta create momentum. So I'm looking for demand and I'm looking for mentorship because I wanted to know everything my mentor knew.
People who are just like you and me. Hey, how you doing? David Price here with another episode of Ordinary People Doing Extraordinary Things in Orlando, Florida. Please, if you like what you see, hit that thumbs up button, hit the subscribe button, and hit that little bell. So every time we do release a video, you get to see it. And it lets us know that we're doing a good job so we can make more videos. Put some stuff in the comments if there's something that you like or something else that you want to see. Put in the comments if you need some kind of training video or something you want to learn. Again, put that in the comments, and anything I see in the comments, we're going to make a video about that. Super excited today. I got Keith over here, drove down from Mississippi, and just super pumped, Keith, man. It's good to see you. How's everything going?
Man, super fantastic. I always like to say finer than a frog's hair.
Finer than a frog's hair. Is that a Mississippi slang?
That's actually North Carolina.
North Carolina.
Yes.
Okay. I know you've been everywhere. I know you're originally from Florida.
Yes.
Right? You live in Mississippi now.
Correct.
And I'm guessing you must have lived in North Carolina if you talk like that.
I lived in North Carolina.
Where else?
Lived in North Carolina, stationed in Virginia, and those were probably about the only places I ever lived.
What part of Virginia?
Quantico.
Quantico. Okay. Mm-hmm. I was in Virginia Beach for about 4 years. I was stationed. Yeah, it was. We had it made. Ran on the beach for PT, so that was good. So how you enjoying the weather? I mean, it's beautiful here right now in Florida.
Oh, I love it. It's been slaughtering down south and beyond hot. And here now I can just be comfortable. Nice fall breeze.
Yeah, the hurricane came in and it like brought all the heat with us.
Yes.
and took the heat. So it's definitely been nice.
Awesome.
So, man, you got a really great story. We met about 4 months ago. 4 months ago. It's been a pleasure. I definitely enjoy every time I get to see you, talk to you. Love your energy. I mean, you're just always ready to go, ready to help some people. Want to talk about a little bit about your past. So you went to high school, graduated high school, and then you almost had the same path as me. I joined the Army at 20 years old. Mm-hmm. You joined the way tougher Marines.
Yes, sir. At
21. You actually worked in security. Actually worked in security too. Mine was after the military though. But I think your security was more important than mine. I think mine was just like the gate guard, like here, making sure the right people are at the gate.
I did that too.
So, and then I think I did one at Mercedes. It was like the free trade zone at Mercedes, but nothing real exciting like you. But let's talk about what made you decide to join the Marines, and that's obviously a big decision. Mm-hmm. And let's talk about that.
Well, high school had a criminal justice teacher, Scott Barksdale. Never forget him. One of the best teachers I ever had. And that was my criminal justice class that I had in high school. It was actually a 2-year class, junior and senior year. And he was a Marine. And the stories that he told and the things that it did, this is the person that he was. And he always told me he was a real good teacher. And he said, hey, you have to leave. I know you want to be a police officer, but you're going to have to go get some experience because no one's going to hire a young black kid, just straight out of high school, join the Marine Corps. So of course it took me a few years to listen to him because graduated high school at 18 and I didn't go to the Marine Corps until 21.
So you joined the Marines. Did you have any kind of fear when you joined?
Well, the biggest fear was actually when I first went to the Marine Corps, I went to the Marines thinking that you're not going to break me. So being the person that I was very belligerent, to the people that were trying to help me improve my life. Imagine that.
Right.
So it actually got to a point where they got tired of me and they put me on what you call trial training. So they said, you have 5 days to get your together or you're going home. So at that time, I knew that I could not go back home because a lot of people was already saying, there's no way you're going to be a Marine. You'll be back. So when they said that they giving me 5 days to get it together or I'm going home, I just had to conform to the military standards.
It's amazing when we were told we have no choice, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the biggest thing with entrepreneurs and people working for themselves, is they have the option on whether they could do something or not,
Mm-hmm.
right? But when you give them no choice, right? Like for instance, when you're hungry and you need to eat to live, like
Absolutely.
you find a way to eat.
Yes, sir.
Right. But the minute I give you some kind of option, so that's good to have the Marines knows a little something about getting people to do some things, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, because not failing was not an option.
Yeah.
So it had to work.
I love it. So you made it work. You're in the Marines for 4 years. You served in Iraq?
No, I did most my stuff was Somalia, Haiti,
Okay.
those campaigns.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that was a little bit before my time.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So you did 4 years in the Marines, and then from there, what did you do?
I always had a desire to be a police officer since my younger years. A lot of people say, I want to be a cop all my life. No, I really want to be a cop all my life. Actually became a police explorer at the age of 16, building those steps to get into law enforcement. And that's why I did join the Marine Corps, to get that experience that was, my teacher, told me, years prior. So got out of the Marine Corps, and my first job was 18 months too long in a state prison in Raleigh, North Carolina. And I wouldn't put that on anybody, even the inmates that are in there. So actually put myself in law enforcement school at one of the local colleges, got a sponsor from a police department, but actually just put myself through the school to get my own certification.
Yeah, it's amazing. I'm from New Jersey, and yeah, it's so competitive to be a police officer. I'm sure it's like that everywhere,
Yes.
right? I'm sure that's why you put yourself through
Yes.
school. So what I'm loving so far is, you had a goal as a child, and you've been taking the steps, right? Someone's been
Correct.
coaching you along the way. It might have been different people.
Correct.
But it's all right, cool. You want to be a police officer? First, you got to do this, be a Marine.
Correct.
Right. A lot of times people have these goals and they get so stuck, but they don't want to do the things that you have to accomplish that. And you put yourself through school. And then you're a police officer for 14 years, right?
Yes.
So
About 13.
13 years. So that's a long time. What was that like? You're living your dream now, right?
Living my dream. And it was everything that I expected to be. And looking back, with the police explorers training that I had as a teenager, 16 years old, and being able to apply those things that someone instilled in me years ago, and of course, with, being through the police academy and just being a good person, by my parents, being raised by good parents, knowing how to treat people and helping people. And that's pretty much what my career, 90% of my law enforcement career was helping people more than arresting people and writing tickets.
That's awesome. We need more, and don't get me wrong, I love the blue, but we can always use more people looking to help people than write tickets. I was the young kid always getting tickets. I felt like every time, man, and it's funny, like I was obviously the problem, right? But like, man, these police, but it was me. Maybe I just need to slow down, right?
Absolutely.
So I'm sure you deal with a lot of everything over that 13-year period. So Awesome. So you did that, and I actually took the police test, right?
Correct.
So the civil service test, right?
Correct.
Yeah, I did take the civil service test, and actually started getting hits from the sheriff's office.
Mm-hmm.
But at that time, I actually got into the oil business, and I was like,
Money.
yes, I was like, this is gonna pay me better than being a police
Absolutely.
officer. So I stuck with that. So then you went and became a contractor.
So I got into, while I was a police officer, actually had a cleaning business, a cleaning service business, and then got into some network marketing back then. I think it was prepaid legal back then, and did that for a number of years. And so my vision changed. I loved being a cop. It was my dream job, but I knew I couldn't have the lifestyle that I wanted to have being a cop. Will Smith said, don't hate the player, hate the game. Right. But, everybody ain't going to get born into an inheritance. Right. So I knew I had to make this money, but I knew being a cop, I can only go so far up in rank, and I will never be able to, rent a 8,000 square foot house, or not thinking to be in, internal affairs, because they think you're doing something corrupt. Right. So this was during the war, during the Iraqi war, where the Department of State was hiring all U.S. police officers to go overseas to train Iraqi police officers. And at this time, I was probably making $38,000 a year, $38,000 a year. And they were paying $135,000 tax-free money. Right. So I was like, $35,000, $135,000, and tax-free money. So I decided to do it. But the naysayers, people, some family members, people in the department, man, you're going to die. Right. Why would you do that? It's temporary work. It's this and it's that, But I felt if the same God that was protecting me in these states, on the streets I patrol, it's going to be the same God that's going to protect me over there.
Right. Yeah. I mean, where were you a police officer at?
In Clayton, North Carolina.
North Carolina, Clayton. Okay, I'm not familiar with that, but I know there's some places. I mean, I was in Iraq too. I wasn't a contractor, but I mean, there's some places. Being a police officer here, stateside, is not too different than being over there. So you're a contractor for 3 years. I worked as a contractor in Africa. I mean, we have so many similarities in our story. Yes. I was also with a network marketing company. So you're talking about network marketing and a cleaning business. So this is the first thing I'm hearing about, your entrepreneurship. So were you always, because you said you always want to be a police officer, which is the opposite of being an entrepreneur, right? Because you're basically a state or government employee at that point, or I guess town, right? Or be an entrepreneur. So when did that happen? Did something happen in your where like, what, I need to create my own income, I need to create my own business, or was this something in the back of the head the whole time?
I was just visited home, hadn't been home in years down in Pompano Beach. But down near the beach growing up, my dad used to always he actually worked for millionaires, my dad did. And they owned shopping centers. And he was actually the custodian of this shopping center. And these people back then, they were rich. I mean, that's beyond rich. Where they had the Mercedes-Benz, the Rolls Royces, where my dad took care, their vehicles, took care of the shopping areas. And he actually sometimes had to go to their homes to, do work around the house. And these houses were huge, David. I mean, on the intercoastal in Fort Lauderdale, walking in the backyard, seeing the sheephead fish in the water and just being exposed to so much, at a young age. And it was a 7-Eleven that was next to a Lamborghini dealership. So my dad used to take me to the 7-Eleven, get a Slurpee, and walk back over to the Lamborghini dealership. And I'm looking through the window, and he used to always say, which one you want? And I'll go, I want the black one. I want that black Lamborghini. And he's always say, you can get whatever you want. You work hard enough to get it. And so as a child, that always stuck with me. And being a dad that had like only a 3rd grade education. And one of the things she used to always say, if I only had an education, there's no telling what I'll be. And so with which I think that was a vehicle that I think if you had to put it in words, if I only had a vehicle, there's no telling what I would be.
Right.
And I knew that entrepreneur or business is a vehicle that will take you a lot further than any educational or any type of job. And that's something that always was down in me that, so of course today, being, riding through the old neighborhood, that Lamborghini dealership is not there anymore. I think it moved somewhere else. But, and seeing the Sonic, I think it was a cigarette boat company back then. It was called Sonic, and seeing the race boats coming through, and it's always saying, I'm gonna have a boat like that. I'm gonna have a boat like that one day. But again, being in law enforcement, I knew that would never happen. So being introduced to learning about prosperity, in church, getting more closer to God and learning about, the things that we supposed to have, and that's what made this so much better, that I started understanding that God has more for me.
I love this, man. I mean, that's so true, because I grew up in the projects, and we Cheerios, and not Honey Nut Cheerios, right? Cheerios, right? And peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and then my mom, she was a single mom and doing the best she can with 2 children. But then my grandfather was a business owner, and he was a successful business owner, and would go there on the weekends and stuff like that, or sometimes during the week, and just seeing the difference in the lifestyle. And then I remember when I was a teenager, I worked as a plumber, and a plumber helper actually. And the guy, he worked with these big time builders in New Jersey that did like a lot of these like renovation houses in like Rumson. Wow. And these are like old money houses, and we're in these like huge houses, renovating the whole thing. I'm like, man, this is how I need to live. And it just always stuck. I didn't know how. I had no idea how to have that, right? But I knew I was gonna figure it out, and I wasn't gonna quit until I did, and going along the journey. But what I wonder is, and for you as well, like if we were never exposed to those things, right? If our lives would have been different, right? If there's so many people out there that are watching this, that they just never been exposed, like they doesn't even know that world exists. Right. You know what I mean? So they don't have anything they're striving to, right? It's like let's say Iowa is the best place in the world to vacation, right? But like if no one knows it, no one's been there, no one sees pictures, no one heard the stories, like no one's going there. So that's why I wonder. So that's cool. So your cleaning business, that was your first thing into being an entrepreneur?
That was my first time being an entrepreneur.
So how did that start?
Well, my dad actually had a window cleaning business. Okay. And this was in the 80s. And so he worked his job, used to get off work, and actually used to wash the same shopping center he worked at. But on his business, he started a window cleaning business where he was actually washing the windows of the people that had the stores. So I used to help him, I think he washed them once a week. So when he got up in age, because I had an older dad, he actually died at 92. So when people used to see us together, they'll go, "Moses, is that your grandson?" I'm like, "No, that's my boy." But I used to wash these windows with him, and to the point where when he couldn't do it anymore, I was like 18 at the time. And I think he maybe had 50 windows in the shopping center. And being young and immature, I really didn't know what I had.
Right.
And I kind of just let the business, fade away, kind of not doing it, not cleaning them like I supposed to, and kind of just let it go away. And I look back now of wow, no telling where that business could have gone, because at that time, my dad was the only person that was ever cleaning windows. And he had this unique technique where he used a paint roller along on a stick, along with a squeegee on a stick. And, and just and put the water on the windows with the paint roller and slid it down with the squeegee. And he used to always put ammonia in the water. And he used to always tell me, "Don't let anybody know what we're putting in the water because no one's doing this." but we really did have the most cleanest windows in the world, down there, and no one was cleaning windows. So he was actually the creator, of that.
Maybe we need to patent the window waller squeegee thing.
They got him.
They
already
got it.
We missed it.
Someone was spying through the windows watching. That's it. Every time I think I got a good idea.
Right.
Okay, so then network marketing, which again, I tried a couple different network marketing companies myself. Never had the success, but learned a ton.
Right.
Learned a lot. Learned a lot about social media and posting on social media. So super grateful for the coaches and mentors I had in it. What was your introduction to network marketing like?
So at the time, a good friend of mine, he actually got introduced to it through a friend, and he called me on the phone. And sometimes with friends, you take their word and you run with them because that's your friend. And, so he called me on the phone and he was excited. He was like, listen, when I get back, I got to show you something. This is crazy. So to support him, it looked good, but it was more of, I'll support you. Mm-hmm. But it actually turned into something good because actually, imagine being a police officer and I'm trying to sell you legal insurance.
Right. That's funny.
So I got a lot of flack of it, from coworkers and stuff and saying, oh, that's unethical. And I'm like, how is it unethical? I'm not, I'm still doing my job. You going to jail, Right. But I went through it and I really worked my tail off. I work a 12-hour shift, change work at the department, and just hit the streets. Mm-hmm. And because I saw the potential of where this can go. And it was belly to belly, in the streets every day, in the Walmarts, in the malls, being recognized. Oh, y'all need to leave,
Right.
y'all. So it was pretty good. And I can remember this one time, Dave, I did a group sale and the people, my leadership actually helped me do the presentation to, it was a security company. And I made $6,000 in probably like an hour presentation. And I was on Cloud now, and I was like, oh my God, $6,000 in my bank account. This is so good. And then the company never made one payment.
Oh man.
It was a $6,000 chargeback.
Jeez.
And I actually worked it. So it took me 6 months to pay off this $6,000 chargeback. So I was still working a full-time job, mm-hmm. still working the business full-time, mm-hmm. and it took me 6 months to pay off that debt.
Wow.
And at the time, my wife at the time was like, that's stupid. You should just quit. Mm-hmm. You're not making any money from it. You just need to quit. Call it your losses. But I said, no. I said, I got myself into it. I said, we spent it well.
Right.
So God, I have to pay it back. And I did it. And I still went hard for 6 months until I paid that $6,000 back. And it taught me something, even though that was almost 20 some years ago, mm-hmm. even today, when you get chargebacks or something like that, you got to write good business. Right. It wasn't my fault the people didn't pay the bill, but you have to write good business and you just have to have that tenacity to keep going, But if I would have quit back then, if something happened with me now, presently, a chargeback or something like that, I wouldn't have the tenacity or the know-how to get through it. So that's one of the big things that, like you say, life lessons, and you learn and you know how to get through things. And it's pretty good.
Yeah, I like that. You're like, we spent it well, right? Because so many people is like, oh, well, it's not my fault. You know what I mean? But yeah, you spent the money, mm-hmm. and it kind of is. So I love that you took responsibility and you did what you had to do to fix it. And mm-hmm. you probably got way more than a $6,000 of education.
Correct.
Because you went through that, right? And what you became on the other side of that was worth that $6,000.
Correct.
Plus you got to spend it. So it was a win-win.
Mm-hmm.
So how long were you with prepaid? It was a prepaid legal, right?
Prepaid legal.
Yeah.
5 years, actually.
5 years.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Never got the executive level.
No.
I got the director level, but never could get that over that executive director, walking, only EDs only,
Got it. Yeah, I had a little success and then it leveled out, but it came down to I wasn't doing my part, and two, having a system without leads that's a rough world.
I can't imagine how I did it.
Yeah, I know when you're telling me belly to this and that, like, well, I didn't do all that. I did some posts on Facebook and waited for people to come to me. Like, I wasn't really putting in the kind of work, but introducing a lead system, so that's the next thing. How did you find an insurance?
Well, actually, a good friend at the time, actually, when I decided to get back into law enforcement, I actually moved back to South Florida, and all of my friends that I had when I was a police explorer are now, majors and colonels and lieutenants on the sheriff's office, in Broward County. So I said, they got me and they said, listen, we'll get your interview, but the rest is up to you. So I actually got hired, and got a conditional offer of employment with the Broward Sheriff's Office and went through everything and got to the psychological part. And the doctor felt that I wasn't going to be a good fit. With my injuries I got in Iraq and, and all these things, and the door closed. So at that, I always say, a millimeter of a second, if that's a true time,
right?
I actually panicked and I was like, God, what am I supposed to do? Mm-hmm. This is all I know. Right. I've been doing this since the age of 16, right. Law enforcement, security, military. This is all I've ever done. What am I supposed to do now? Because actually, at the time, I was working that secure access security job, making $12 an hour. Right. I actually had to move back home with my mom. So I was living with my mom, 40 plus years young and making $12 an hour and looking to get this law enforcement job. And it didn't go through. So I called my friend at the time who actually introduced me to insurance once in 2011. Mm-hmm. And I said, no, man, I'm not doing any insurance.
I don't want to do that.
I'm still trying to go back overseas, at the time, because I got injured in Iraq. Mm-hmm. And I was actually making a 6-figure income on disability. Right. So I was like, man, I ain't selling no insurance. I'm good. So in 2014, he actually asked me again. And I said, no, man, I'm going back home. I'm going to be a cop. I'm good. In 2015, I called him and I'm like, hey, man, that insurance thing still on the table for me. So actually moved to Alabama from Pompano, packed 2 Foot Lockers, put them in the backseat of my Charger I had at the time, going 95 north, and 10-hour trip probably turned into 15 hours because that's how many times I kept making a U-turn, with, one side of saying, man, what are you, crazy? You leaving Florida to go to Alabama? You leaving this lifestyle? You should have other departments that you didn't try hard enough. Right. I'll turn back around. I'm heading back south. Then other things say, well, you did all of this, you don't know until you try. And I'll turn back around. And I did that probably 3 or 4 times, driving down 95. And to the point where when I decided, well, this has to work. And when I got to Alabama, it was one of those things where I was not glad, but I knew that the door to my law enforcement career was closed. And I knew it was closed because the sheriff's office actually locked me out of their website. Okay. And it said unable to reapply indefinitely. Right. I thought I was a felon. I was like, I'm bringing so much to the team, so I'm bringing so much back to the county that I live in. Their loss, man. And 13 years of law enforcement, any type of training class you can imagine, and being a good person, which this world and U.S. law enforcement really don't have that much. So when I got to Alabama, it wasn't a thing of, well, if this doesn't work, I can always go back to Florida, or I can do this. I knew that there wasn't a plan B. Bridge is burnt. The bridge is burnt, blown up, and it had to work. And that's how I came into
That's
this.
always the best way.
Yes. And actually my 3rd month in the business at that time, I was the top producer of the company.
That's it. So the company was Lincoln Heritage, right? I mean, amazing company. Obviously you learned a ton there. So third month, you're the top producer?
Top producer.
Top producer.
Can you imagine it was only 18,000.
18,000 back then, right?
2015.
Yeah, it's funny. I know. I was thinking about leaderboards when I got in the business. You know what I mean? I was thinking about the leaderboards, how they changed so much, right? And you know, did we get better with the tools? Are we better with the mentorship? Are we finding better people, right? Or maybe all of everything. But so Lincoln Heritage, you did amazing over there. How long were you there?
6 years.
6 years.
Yes.
You built quite a business over there.
Yes.
You know, and you know, what happened? Like, you know, obviously something happened along the way. I mean, you're making money, you're a good producer, you're comfortable, but something happened where you wanted to change, you wanted more.
Well, actually, that's where I met my wife, in the business with Sheena Adams.
Completely amazing. That's it. Let's get that on camera.
And when she saw my first paycheck, you know, when I was that top producer, and she saw the pay stub, and she said, "Well, I think we're going to get married." And
was she in the business yet?
She was in the business.
She was, okay.
Yeah. We actually met each other in the business.
So you were making more than her then?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. And that's why she wanted to get married.
Okay.
Yep.
She's smart. She's a businesswoman.
Yeah. She saw the end in mind. I saw love. She saw business.
She saw the vision. That's awesome. So you know, Sheena decided to marry you. So what happened that you decided to that you wanted more, right? You know, you guys both left. You know, obviously there was no bad blood. I know it wasn't a negative reason, but you know, it looked like you wanted to have access to more states, more leads, better opportunity. What was it that made you decide to move?
It was a time where I always like to use the movie. You know, I'm a movie buff.
I love it.
And it was, I think of Percy Sledge, the Lightning Thief. And I always like to use this scenario of the Lotus. You know, when they were in the casino scene and they were on a mission, but they forgot why they were there because they started eating the Lotus. And everything was looking good around them. And it's not until when you realize that there's more.
Right.
And where I was at, you know, don't get me wrong, it was the best, you know, mentorship, coaching, you know, had my back, you know, when I was at my lowest and trying to get, all of that was there. But when you can only go so far, and the people that you bring into the business, and you tell them that they can make all this money, but there's so much of a gap between you and your agents,
right?
Where it becomes, and people, you know, fall out for the business, and you know, high lead balances, and you know, just work harder. You know, 50% is better than nothing. Right. You know, and just really having all of that, and you kind of start feeling you have a conscience about you, and you know, being stuck with debt, you know, with people leaving and stuff. And it became a point of time when, even with family members, hey, give me a quote. And there's no need for me to give you a quote because I can't write you. Right. You know, you're not in my state. You know, well, can I come into the business? No, actually I can't. You know, you're in the wrong state. And we're starting to leave a really loose, and even going into someone's house and they had, you know, HIV or something, you know, I can't write you. I'm sorry. Right. You know, and just in having to give that person to another, you know, agent, you know, that can insure them. So really just leaving a lot of money on the table and just being restricted to how far you can go. Kind of like, you know, a dog on a chain. You know, you can bark and run, but, you know, eventually you're going to get snatched back.
Right. So, I mean, you know, what I'm hearing is you're doing well, but you want to do better. But more importantly, what you really talked about a lot is you wanted to offer a better opportunity to more people.
Correct.
You want to be able to help more people. You didn't want to be limited to the 4 states that you're in. And you want to be able to hire people. I mean, I can't imagine, having a good friend, especially because, you're from Florida, right? You grew up in Florida. Like, you can't hire not one person in the state you came. You can't help your friends, like, get the success that you're having. I remember the talks and stuff beforehand. What was it like? Because, it's hard, right? You're used to everything, right? Everything here versus the unknown. Like, what did it take to make those decisions, and how did you do it?
Well, being who I am, I'm used to change. Being a Marine,
Right.
You here today and you gone today.
Right.
So, and of course, the Marines, you improvise, you overcome, and then you adapt. So I have no problem with change. So to be able, and I always support, Sheena's decision. If, she said, I think it's time. And I said, okay. So I'm with you, whatever you want to do. So of course, when she found you and I said, well, this must be something serious. So that was the part that it was just, it was easy to just follow her lead on wanting to make the change.
Awesome. So you relied on the spouse. I love that. It's funny, like, my fiance Michelle, where do you want to eat? Like, just pick. Like, could someone make some decisions for me for once? You want to make decisions, then I guess you get wise enough where you're like, no, it's cool. You can have all the decisions. let me just follow that lead.
Correct.
So that's awesome. So you came on over. You guys absolutely killing it, doing amazing. But I believe your first full month with us. That was your best month in the business.
Yes.
Your first full month. So how did that feel? Because that obviously was like, okay, cool, we did the right thing.
Well, it was when we all sat down at the table, and trying to get this stuff together, it just kind of got to a point where I said, if I can do it here, because no matter where you go, you follow.
You got to bring yourself.
You bring yourself. So I knew that with what was here, if I did it over there, I'm going to kill it over here.
Right.
So that was the most exciting thing, that to know that the vehicle that we had over here, we went from a Mercedes to a
Bugatti.
Yeah.
That's it, man. The new Bugatti, $5 million, right? So I appreciate you coming out here. From Mississippi.
Thank you for having me.
I love working with you. I mean, it's only been 4 months. You're absolutely killing it. I believe you guys did $189,000 last month, which is phenomenal.
Yes.
Just record after record, helping a ton of people. So, but 4 months. It's only been 4 months. You guys don't even know what you're doing yet, right?
Don't even know what we're doing.
So really pumped to see what you guys are doing. Is there anything you want to say before we get going?
I have just one thing I always say. Think about when you're at Christmas and you beg your parents for that remote control car or that, Barbie doll, and you get it. You open it up and you're excited. You see that remote control car and you ask for the batteries. So you got this nice thing that you always wanted and you get it, but you don't have the batteries to make it work. And so many times when people come into an opportunity, they don't realize that the vehicle is going to be there. Everything that you want is there, but you are the batteries. You got to put yourself in it and you got to go, and you can be an Energizer battery or you can be a dollar store battery, and if you be the dollar store battery, you're going to have to buy a whole lot of them because you're going to die quickly and you're going to keep dying quickly and you're not going to last long. But if you that Energizer or that Duracell, that it's expensive, but it's going to last longer. And that when it's time to replace it, you went a whole lot further than you had, just trying to be cheap and not invest into it. So no matter where you go, this is an awesome opportunity, but the batteries aren't included.
I love it, man. I appreciate you, man. That's been another episode of Ordinary People Doing Extraordinary Things. Please hit that subscribe button, hit that thumbs up, and hit that little bell to get notifications. If there's something you see in the comments, or something you want to put in the comments, put it in the comments, and we'll make what kind of videos or answer any questions that you have. This has been another episode of Ordinary People Doing Extraordinary Things with David Price.